interoperability resources. So from a technical point of view, FHIR is basically RESTful web services. Uh, in RESTful web services, we have different resources. In same way, in FHIR, we have different resources like patient, encounter, observation, and output can be anything like XML, JSON, HTTP, Atom. So I would like to share my screen, and I will share some implementation and FHIR test server. So you can see this one is one of Happy FHIR server. FHIR server implementation in Java. Basically, it's open source implementation of FHIR server. So in this server, you can see this one is UI, and this observation, patient, encounter, immunization. These are different resources. So the main concept of FHIR is basically based on RESTful web services, where we have a different resources. In this one, we have patient resource, and you can view this as a JSON or XML or whatever format we want. So you can see in this response body, we have a structured JSON key and value pairs. And we have a specific ID. So ID is for resource location, resource. In every representation resource, when we are representing a resource as a RESTful web services, we have to provide one resource locator or resource identifier. So basically this one is ID, and after that we have a key value pairs. So from technical point of view, every FHIR resource is just a RESTful web services, a JSON output or XML output. So from FHIR point of view, if we have to implement our own FHIR server, if we have to install our own FHIR server, then we have to look into some open source implementation of FHIR server. One such implementation available is Happy FHIR. This Happy FHIR is completely open source FHIR implementation available in Java, Spring Boot, JPA. And it's open source with Apache license. So we can check their GitHub. They provided almost all HL7 Happy FHIR implementation. So now we will look into code base, coding sample or demo. So suppose as a organization, as a company, if you have to implement or you have to install a server, FHIR server, then how you can do that one? First thing is a lot of organization provide a test server, freely available test server. For testing purpose, you can use that freely available test servers. But for sensitive information, it should be only used for testing purpose and not for production purpose, because this information will be available publicly. It will be available. So sensitive information you cannot test on publicly available test server. This one is one sample of publicly available test server, FHIR server. So I'm going to explain, if you have to build from scratch, from zero level, if you have to build a server, FHIR server for your organization, then how you can build it. So Happy provide a Java JPA implementation of Happy server. Going to the documentation, get started. Here you will get the code. This one is code for FHIR server if you have to build, clone or download it, or you can also use command line to download it. Open your Eclipse and import it. Existing Maven project. Next, and you have to go to that folder and you can import that JPA server. So this JPA server is a full-fledged FHIR server for FHIR, for Eobject, if you want to use it for your company, for your organization, or if you want to build one FHIR server for commercial purpose, for as a SaaS service, use this. In this one, you will get this properties file, happy properties file. In this file, you have to customize basically if you have to provide your database username, password, or you have to change, like in this one, it's a JDBC H2 type. Here you have to provide username, password, and tester, and build this. Run as, install. You will get one war file. Use that war file inside your Tomcat and run that Tomcat. And locally, you will get locally running one FHIR server. I already run that Tomcat. You can see this one is full featured, complete FHIR server available for use and complete production grade. So this one is a complete FHIR server. And now I will explain how to use this. So suppose now you have an installed FHIR server and you have to use this, you have to create a resource on this server. So like I said, this one is mainly FHIR server is mainly RESTful web services, and all resource like patient, audit event, appoint resource, or resource, a single resource with ID. So for creating any resource on FHIR server, we need something like Postman or any RESTful web client, RESTful web services client. So in this one, I'm for testing this, I'm using this REST client. You can use any REST client that can create a post command or put command. That's enough. Just we have to provide a payload, we have to provide URL, and we have to uh, call this, execute this using post, put, or delete, or any other RESTful methods, using any method. So in this one, I provided resource URL. So my FHIR server is running on 127. This one is locally. It's running on local IP address 127.0.0.1 8080, and so this one is a person resource. So I provided this IP address and provided some payload, something. This one is a post, our URL, and send request. After a successful request, it will create one resource here. If we will search this, we will get a resource here. This one is response body in JSON. We can also see this in pure JSON format. This one you can see its response, return response is 201 URL post, and this one is created with ID 3. So suppose if we have to verify this, see the response body, family ID given Aditi Kumari, whatever payload we provided, we are getting. We can also check it in URL. As a JSON, you will get this response. So in this our FHIR server, this FHIR server working as a standalone FHIR server, using this RESTful client, we are able to create one resource as a patient, and we are able to get this resource using this patient ID. So the whole picture or complete FHIR service is basically this. You are providing or working with any resource type. You are creating any payload or you are getting any payload, and it's basically machine readable. So how it will help in interoperability? Suppose one of our SE member, Unimainnet, suppose they are creating this as a Eobject or this resource patient resource. So they are taking that value like given name or family name or phone number from their database and generating this FHIR resource or creating this Eobject, and that will be available, that will be published. So someone from Unimainnet will use simply this HTTP client. In Spring Boot, we have a REST template also for consuming such type of web services or consuming such type of REST web services or FHIR services or resources. And they will simply consume this. They will use this URL published by Unimainnet, and Invoker Tech will consume this. Using this URL, they can consume these JSON values. And once that JSON value is available inside program, that JSON can be converted, binded, marshaled into Java or Python or any program, and can be used anywhere in system, in application. And also same way, if we want to update this,
Meanwhile, Ved is coming back. Can I ask a question from last session?
Yeah, sure. Even a technical question you can ask. Krishan is there to answer those questions.
Yeah, sure, sir.
Priyanka can take all the functional questions, whatever you have. So the team is here. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So actually, I just have a question from last presentation. I think Ved is back. I can put my question later on.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so my question is regarding that Eobject sandbox. There is one architecture where we have discussed about provider market and sandbox for standards object. What it means, I am a little bit not clear about that. Can you just explain?
Yeah, sure. So let me answer that. So let us say now Ved is showing the FHIR related Eobject thing. And
Right.
if you have developed the FHIR based Eobject, you need the testing of that. So one, you need the specification of the Eobject. As like, for example, we are providing the specifications for e-consultation or e-prescription or e-discharge summary. And you have developed the Eobject based on those specifications. You need to test it. So you need a sandbox environment which will publish all the APIs, all these APIs which you can use in your REST client to send the data, and you can test whether your JSON object what you're sending is validated by the FHIR server properly, and you are following all the profile rules in defining your E objects. So this is sort of a test environment, and it will publish all the APIs, dummy APIs sort of thing, or I would say mock APIs, which will help you to develop your object and test it. Basically.
Okay.
Similarly, for the microservice thing, there will be the set of APIs you can go and test. Whether you have developed it conforming to the rules and the specifications or not.
Okay, got it. It means it will be used for verification, validation purpose for profiles and formats, and all the code system is properly integrated or not.
Yeah, and one more thing I want to put here, like as I said in the morning, we are developing the FHIR based on India profile. So it is not a vanilla profile. You cannot choose to pick a public FHIR server and test it. These FHIR objects have to comply with the MDDS and EHR standards, which have been
Right.
mandated in NDHB. So this is a profile which has been developed for India. And when you are testing your eObject with the sandbox, it will be confirming you that you are following all the rules and the validation rules. Basically, you are following as per the profile specifications, and it is confirming to NDHB standards.
And Axis is working on it.
Yeah, so we have already worked a lot in that, and we are publishing it in open source, slowly.
Okay, that's good. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I think Ved is back. Ved, you can share your screen, please.
Yes, Priyanka. So this FHIR server, standalone FHIR server may not be viable for every organization and company. They cannot invest in a completely standalone FHIR server. Server cost and maintenance cost will be there. So FHIR also provide one embedded server, a small, you can say like jar or code file that can be used for standalone for embedded type of FHIR server. So we will look into that one also. So this one is called FHIR Simple Server.
So just to interrupt what Ved is explaining, there are two ways of implementing the FHIR server for an e-object per se. If you're an organization like NIC, or you are a big vendor organization or hospital organization, a hospital might be required to have a full-fledged FHIR server, because they might have a lab department, they have a radiology department, and they will use all the resources of a FHIR server. But again, the maintenance and the capability of and deep understanding of FHIR is required. But for smaller vendors or startups who cannot afford to have entire, but they just want to generate the e-object, which is the minimum clinical summary of a patient, we have done something. We have simplified the way which Ved is going to explain further. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So for smaller organization, we have one more way, means from FHIR side, from HL7 side, that we can simply, as our output can be directly a FHIR object, FHIR resource. So suppose if we are dealing with only eObject, or if we have to deal only with a patient resource, that time, and we want our output, our application output as a eObject or FHIR server. That time we can also use a very small RESTful server with simple jar. So this one is also available as a part of FHIR, part of HL7. And this part we are going to use in our eObject building. So basically in simple server also, where we are using only one resource, either eObject or patient or lab, the main output should be JSON based, something like this. So in this GitHub, Happy already provided a small server, JPA server. that we are using for our eObject purpose, for building our eObject. We are using this as an envelope, as our JSON cover or JSON marsler, and we are building our encounter as a single resource. So for that purpose, I will explain. Priyanka already explained what exactly eObject is and how it's useful. Now, from technical point of view, how to generate eObject, that I will explain. So suppose I have to build one encounter object. We will create one project. In this step, we just added one new project, completely new project in our Eclipse. This one is a Spring Boot application. It's a normal POM file with a Spring Boot and starter tester dependency. Resource, we have application properties. This one is Spring Boot application file, normal file. Here I will add one class, one controller class. Now you can see red part. That means models are not available. Now I will add jar file. Now you can see this one is coming from our jar file. So once we added jar file in our class path, all dependency resolve, and now I will try to run this.
Isn't that like magic, Ved?
Yes, sir. So we are almost provided heavy lifting part.
Ved, I have a question here.
Before the question, just to let everybody know, this is one of the examples of what open source and volunteer community can do, because this has been actually being implemented by a set of volunteers and SCM members.
So we can see this exact same FHIR-based output, JSON output structure, everything. In this one, you will see this part of observation, examination, diagnosis. Diagnosis is array with objects, array and object. Some part, it's only objects. So you will get a complete eObject JSON output with all the structured key, same key. So if every organization company under our SCA or outside SCA using this jar file, they will able to produce exact same output.
Indian jugaad mentality at work, right? I mean, this is a jugaad, right? It's a workaround jugaad that somebody who doesn't want to do the full stack FHIR, this a startup, a small startup, it's a great thing for them.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, they
Actually,
can directly use it. They can directly use it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because and hats off to the jugaad that is there in all our heads.
Somebody had a question before you go ahead with. I
Yes,
interrupted.
yes, sir. It is Amit here. Ved, I saw that you included a jar. So I believe that is from the FHIR, right? The Happy FHIR.
it's a mix. We use our model, customized model, and FHIR based parser.
Okay. Is there a way to include this dependency via Maven?
Yes, in future it will be available. Means
It's
maybe
going to be available shortly, right?
yes, yes. In Maven and Gradle it will be available.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
Any
So
questions
basically,
here?
this
Anyone? Feel free to ask.
eObject will be available in 3 different flavors. One is one for very small community that can directly use it for generating encounter node eObjects. One for standalone file server, and one for means in different Python and .NET format. Any question?
Hello. Yeah, I have one question regarding the this jar.
Yes.
Hello.
Yeah, ask me.
Actually, you have used this encounter jar, right? So,
Yes.
is this your this is the jar generated by Access Health,
Yes,
or
it's our own.
No,
okay,
it's a volunteer community that has worked on it to
okay,
develop this. The specifications and design and guidance was done by Access Health.
Accessible.
okay, okay. So these jars are available publicly.
They will
Not
be,
now.
yes.
Yes, they
Okay,
will. And we will share the link whenever they are available.
okay, okay. Thank you.
Shweta, just wanted to check, are you from CDAC? Just so that we
Yeah,
can
yeah,
just
yeah. Yeah,
note
I'm
down the
Shweta
names.
from CDAC. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Please introduce yourself when you ask questions. It's easier
Yeah.
for us to follow up post the session.
Yeah, sure.
So this is Satish from Paripal. So my question is, so basically that jar did the conversion of an input to a FHIR output. That's what it did, correct?
Yes, basically. And also providing model classes.
Yeah, but you had to provide the input for it. And if they
Yes,
were
yes,
in a
yes,
particular
yes,
structure,
yes, yes.
otherwise it
Not
wouldn't have been able to provide you the output, correct?
That's right. You have to have this is for the, you have to have an input that gets the relevant data sets,
Correct. It
standardized
gets it,
data sets. Yeah. So
so
you
you
need
get
a
the relevant output.
translator. Yeah, you need the translator layer before this in your application.
That's what I was
That's
trying
also
to get to. Yeah.
that's also
Yeah.
something we are working on
Yeah.
specifying so that volunteers can then even do that. We are soliciting volunteers from the SEA community and other help to get that done as well.
Okay, no, but that would be specific to every organization. The translation would be specific to that particular product's own.
Yes, the actual translation would be, but the tool to provide the mapping for the translation could be generic tool.
Okay, so there is a tool basically you're saying which is configurable at the outside. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay, fine, got it. Okay, yeah, we can go ahead. I'm
Hi, this is Pragya again from CDEC Noida. I have a question with,
yeah, please.
you have provided is all e-encounter object is converted
Yes.
in a FHIR object. Now,
Yes.
how you are incorporating value sets, port systems of MDDS or local? Is there any linkage? Yeah.
No, basically what we are doing is we are using FHIR custom profile capabilities. In custom profile capability, we can pass it value set as a small as a enum, or
Okay.
as means in Java we can provide as a container we can pass out. Suppose for like gender, male, female,
Yeah.
others, we can simply pass it as a enum.
So what the Pragya, so what Ved is currently mentioning, see that layer you will have to basically anyways write, right? So this is just a reference implementation. You will have to provide your own translation layer anyways. Even if it is a generic layer or not, you'll still end up plugging it to your backend system somehow or the other. So that effort will always be there in any case.
Correct, and that effort will be minimized if a generic translation, some core components of a generic translation engine are made available open source, number one, or it is even easier if your application is MDDS compliant anyway, then there's no translation required. At least at the encounter level, those particular data elements, if they are MDDS compliant, then you don't even need a translator engine. Directly use this jar file to generate a FHIR compliant Eobject.
Okay, that's great. It means in case of MDDS, and we are using, for example, for preferred required codes in FHIR, we are directly
Yes.
using the FHIR API for encoding those fields while we are working with FHIR. But for those fields which are not required, for example, marital status, we are using Azure 7 APIs. While we are sharing their marital status, we provide the link along with that marital status so that the respective corresponding code system can be referred. Is there something
Yes.
MDDS, we need to provide MDDS link or something else to refer where is the actual
No,
code
Pragya.
system is?
No.
Okay.
Actually, Pragya, if you have to build in that one in that way, it's like
Yeah.
required or that type of binding, you have to provide as a concept ID, and every value set you have to provide as a profile, a resource. And inbuilt terminology server will take care of that mapping part.
Okay.
But if you are right now, it's not possible. We cannot provide MDDS as a value set inside FHIR server. So next option is using extension. But even if you will use extension, you cannot use this value set, MDDS value set as a code system or concept ID to provide as a string or normal value, normal string value. So that's why we coded it a complete custom profile way.
Okay. And you are providing enum of that codes if it is defined in your encounter object as a part of
Yes.
your resource.
Yes.
In the form
So we
field.
are So we are forcing user to only use that MDDS value sets using enum.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Pragya. Anyone? Any question?
Hello.
Hi, Ved.
Hello.
Yeah, Vidit.
So very good evening to everyone. My name is Vidhi and I am from National Informatics Center. So first of all, I would like to thank all the presenters. It has been a wonderful session till now. So my question is for Mr. Ved. So Ved, I would just like to ask you first of all that the jar file that you have just used. So if I want to access it, this jar file or similar jar files, from where I can access these files? Like, are they available somewhere on the internet where I can very easily access them?
We have one GitHub repository where we are sharing our open source codes. So we will share this on GitHub, and it will be available from I think from Monday, or Priyanka will take care of this. So Priyanka will release this. From next week or coming future, it will be available from form file also for Maven and Gradle also. So from any central repository, you can also provide dependency and you can get this jar file.
And one more thing I would like to ask you, like me, myself, I have worked on this, the mapping process and, creating of this FHIR resource. So the question that I have in my mind, since these are the jar files that you have created, they serve a kind of a generic purpose.
Yes.
But maybe they, like, I've not checked the entire content, like the entire resource that are generated, but many a times what happens is that because we have many many tags are there in the resource. Like if we check the FHIR website, so all the tags are not relevant to us, or we are not capturing all the data. So many a
Yes.
times it happens that many of the tags we just have to remove it because simply we are not capturing that data. So similarly, I want to ask that with your jar files, if you want to customize them, because we may not be having all the fields, right? So is
Yes.
it possible to do that?
Uh, if you will see our Excel sheet, we marked something like optional and mandatory. So if it's optional, then you can means remove that one. You cannot use that part. And mostly we provided as a model. It's the same like HL7 model. So when you are converting JSON to Java, just you have to take care of null pointer exception. That's all. So it's
Okay.
completely up to you. Mandatory you have to anyway you have to provide, and we will verify. And for optional, simply skip that part.
Okay, and the last thing that I want to ask is that like it is more of a personal question that I want to ask is that since lately I've been working in this FHIR and on the mapping of our database to this FHIR resource. So
Yes.
can you suggest me some online resources or maybe some links where or some website where I can just verify the end resource that I have mapped? Is it compliance with the FHIR or not? Because many a times, as I told you, we have to remove many elements. So
Yes.
sometimes I'm getting confused where suppose I have removed this particular element. So maybe now the resource that I have generated is no more compliant to FHIR. Like, are you getting what kind of dilemma I am facing? That
Yes, yes. So for same purpose, we have a lot of public file server available for testing purpose. If your data is not sensitive, then you can test on that server, publicly available server, or you can simply install your own file server. And using any Postman or any RESTful web services, if you are able to create that resource on server, that means it's file compliant. So
okay, okay.
basically, so you're coding in mainly Java or .NET?
Right now, Java.
Java, then go with FHIR server. And
Okay,
FHIR also providing one test server for testing purpose. Use that one.
okay, okay. Thank you, Mr. Ved.
Thanks, Vicky.
Hello.
Yes, Vaibhav.
The encounter node JSON which you have created in that file. So
Yes.
I want to ask which file resource it complies to. Basically, in the file, there is an encounter resource. Encounter node resource is not there. So I am asking how it is file compliant. What does it mean?
If you will see the HL7 or Happy, in HL7 or Happy, we have one advanced topic called custom structure and custom profile. So this one is coming under a custom profile, custom resource. So we build it as a custom resource.
Okay. Do they have to be registered with some file server also, or
Yes,
we
you
can
can
just
edit it.
customize it?
No, you can.
No, you have to register with the file server to use it with the file server.
I will show you the registration code also. It's very simple. After you will create your custom resource or any resource, even if you are dealing with patient resource, you have to register like this. This line of
No,
code you have to.
this registration is fine for our implementation. I am asking whether it is standard for like across
Custom
India
resource
or
also.
something like
Yes,
this.
yes. It's for custom resource also. Custom resource is a part of HL7 specification.
No, the encounter node resource structure which you just showed, the JSON structure, has it been standardized for India?
No, means when we are using custom profile or custom resource, it's always for a closed group. Means it's so suppose in our SE members, everyone is using this, they will use this. For
And
India
then how?
specific,
Dr. Pankaj, do you want to describe?
Okay, so the e-objects in India are, as you know, we had that discussion in the previous session also. It is an India profile of the FHIR. So when we did an India profile of the FHIR, so this was basically a design that was put together. We started on the pair side first, and you know, when we started working on the pair side with NHA and IRDA, so there were very specific requirements that, you know, when a claim has to be processed, then these are the different fields that are required. You know, we also studied their existing forms and everything. And based on that, then, you know, the e-claim object was created. And to support the e-claim object, the e-discharge summary was created from the provider side. Now, e-discharge summary has to play a delicate balance between what the MCI says for the discharge summary, because there are very specific requirements. It's a legal document, by the way, discharge summary, as per you know, the MCI Act, and it very clearly lays out what should be in the discharge summary. So we had to take care of that on one side, and on the other side, we have to balance with what are the package requirements, what are the claims requirements, what are the processing needs on the payer side. So combining these two things, we created a very specific profile for the e-claim object and the e-discharge summary object. So that was the beginning from the payer side, and then we followed on for the provider side. E-discharge was already done. Then we did all the other ones for the outpatient department also. So that was the genesis, and you know, there are many examples that I can quote why you need a specific India profile. One thing that I've already told you about, the payer side need. The other things are, like for example, in the US they use CPT for all the procedure codes. In India, it is a stated requirement that we use SNOMED CT. In the US, they use CAP codes, which is College of American Pathologists codes, for all the labs. In India, it's a stated requirement we use LOIN. And I can just keep going, you know, drug index. So in the US, they use National Drug Database, NDB, I think it's called. And and in India, it's very clearly that, you know, we use the National Formulary of India. So, you know, there is a whole lot of differences. These are very fine level, granular differences, but then it forces us to create a profile of our own.
Yeah, and this also stands with the sense globally there is very little equivalent to our HDD, healthcare data dictionary. It's very rarely used, but we have our own. India has its own notified, and that is part of the e-objects that is created. So in that sense, it's part of a notified standard for India.
Okay, so basically what I got is that it is a part of standardization process that is absolutely fine, but the encounter note resource which you showed just right now, it is under standardization, means yet to be approved, I think.
As in approved by who?
By some ministry or government.
It's left. See, look at how NDHP is structured. NDHP says that there will be building blocks, and e-objects is one of those building blocks, and it is left to the industry to design those building blocks. And you know, obviously, there has to be a consensus, because you know, the systems have to talk to each other. And on the pair side, all the buy-in has already happened. And so you can look at the joint working group report, which came out from NHA and IRDA jointly. So, which clearly has adopted the e-claim and the e-discharge objects and all the pair side options. Now e-discharge has been adopted on that side, so obviously it applies on the provider side also. But the rest of the objects are something which are designed for the provider community in India, and they do follow the standards which are already prevalent from an MCI perspective. From the Clinical Establishments Act, it very clearly says what are the details that need to be there. So all those are included.
Okay, I think I got it.
So just to summarize what we are saying, that the entire e-objects, all the e-object design are completely based on NDHB standards. We haven't used anything outside that. We have used MDDS, we have used the terminology standard required. We have also used the National Formulary of India. So we, as long as standards are considered, all the notified standards are being used here.
Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead with.
Yes, sir. Any other question on FHIR or eObject?
Yeah.
Yes, hi, this is Chandan from PHFI.
Yeah,
So
Chandan.
currently, we are working with the PHP framework. So,
Okay.
what support the FHIR provide for PHP? Is there any support?
I think one open source PHP FHIR implementation is available, but I don't know if it's active or not, but it's available. But
Okay,
from technical
so
point
can you?
of view, means as a standalone you can run, or in PHP also you can generate, or we will provide you this jar into PHP also. Means we both can work together and we can build something.
There is already an active repository for FHIR for PHP. So like last commit was 5 months ago. So I think there should be enough support, and they also support the DSTU4. So I think you should be good there.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Thanks, Sumit. Thanks for that clarification.
So I would be requesting any more questions before I move to my SCA members.
Yeah. Hi, it's Shweta again from CDAC.
Yes, Shweta.
Actually, I just want to know if we want, if we have to design our custom resources. So we do this by profiling, right?
Yes.
So can you please elaborate some steps? So how can we create our own custom resources? We have to register it also for on FHIR server.
Yes. So if you have to build a custom profile, custom structure, share my screen. So look into this one, this example, custom resource structure. In this one, you define your custom resource.
So in this profile field, we have to give a verified HL7 profile, or we have to.
In HL7, we have already custom resource. Custom resource is already there. So means when you are extending your domain resource, you can extend this domain resource. Domain resource is especially provided for this purpose. Domain resource is a basic one, generic one that you can extend for your custom resource.
Okay. So if we have to create one encounter resource and add some more fields in that, so we can use this way.
This way. After that, you have to provide fields.
Okay.
In this one, for example, they use television, but you can provide your own field. string type like this one. So suppose if you are providing a date in Indian version, that time you have to define here.
Okay.
So this one is as a structure, and after that you have to use this here, my date. And this one, how you will register this.
Okay, register. Okay, okay.
And output something like this.
Yeah, but just a word of caution that this is for the national profile. It is very critical for interoperability that there be one national profile. That's what the UK is doing, for example. They have set up their own national profile for internal interoperability. And they have registered that profile across different countries whom they want to communicate with. So you should not have, from a efficiency in interoperable perspective, multiple national profiles. That will again seed siloing and vertical isolation of systems.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I got that. Thank you.
Yeah, so that's why we already published one Excel sheet with all the key
Okay.
and equal FHIR key. So you can refer to that Excel sheet if you are building this from scratch. If you want.
Okay, okay. Thank you, Ved.
Hi, this is Supriya, and I have a question regarding the national profile. So if there are any further changes in the future and any updates or new versions have to be released, all these are going to be passed through. I mean, who is the custodian for this, or how does one go about it?
That's a good question, Supriya. As I mentioned in the morning, the custodian for all of this is going to be NDHM. It has already been announced by the government. It is in the works, and very soon it will be in place. So, you know, NDHM will be responsible for all these profiles and, you know, maintaining it, updating it. So what we are doing is we are just doing the define stage, and then, you know, NDHM will take over. It will do the certification, it will do maintenance, it will also help you adopt. So, you know, right now we are talking to all of you guys, but then, you know, NDHM will have to sort of take it to everybody.
Okay, great. So even for
just to add over it, sorry, one minute. So all these profiles will be registered in the FHIR registry, which will be maintained by NDHB, as Dr. Pankaj said. And this FHIR registry will publish all these profiles which need to be loaded into the FHIR servers used across the interoperability layer. So ultimately, so all these custom resources will be loaded in the FHIR servers, which will validate the FHIR messaging payload during interoperability. So custom resources will be created as a one-time activity to define the national resource, or whenever any change management will be required by the NDHB. It is not supposed to be done by the individual players. But they need to confirm their FHIR message structure based on these profiles, and this need to be validated at the interoperability layer to ensure that standards are followed.
Great. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, hello, Ved. Hello.
Yeah, please go ahead. Introduce yourselves and
This is Srinivas from Bangalore, 60 Software Applications. I have seen it what Ved was showing on this FHIR side. So just to have a background, we have a complete integrated system called Paras. It is a completely web-based application. I think last time I had given the demo to Ved was also there. We have shown few of the JSON files, how we are generating in the application. Based on the specification given in the Eobjects Excel sheets that was shared by Priyanka. We have a database backend where we are capturing all these patient information and the clinical and all the required data. So out of those, we got out of that data set, we got the data which is exactly required for this e-object, and which is like bringing the FHIR objects from that, and from there we have built an e-objects in the form of like in the front end and the JSON format. So we just we have all the data in the backend. That's what I want to say in the point. And so the next step, what I have understood in the demo is like I need to validate this JSON files, which for that I need an FHIR server, which has to be have to run in local, either in the Java. If I am not comfortable with Java or anything, I may have to go with some open source FHIR or Happy, whatever he has shown, that Happy server. So my question is like, we have the eObject specification and we have the FHIR server and we are generating the JSON. So if I send this JSON file or anything to this Happy server, will it understand this eObject structure and it will validate the things? Or it is in more or less still in the generic format of FHIR structure? Because whatever way he has generated from this jar file, that is like more generic FHIR format I have seen. So if I am not if I understand correctly, so will it understand this eObject if I send to an FHIR server? And how I can validate and from that to whether that will be succeeded or whether I will get any error or anything like that.
For validation part, we will provide some web-based UI or tool where you can validate your output. And from technical point of view, if you are generating it using simple JSON parser or using FHIR server, as long as output are same, then it's same. So basically, eObject or FHIR resources are built for machine readable purpose. So the only main difference between normal parsing or normal RESTful web services and FHIR generated output is in header part, where we provide a content type like JSON or XML. In header part, you have to provide a custom header content type as a FHIR plus JSON. As long as you can provide that one content type in header and your output is same like our FHIR generated output, for machine it's the same.
Okay, yeah, got it. So because we are going with Indian profile kind of objects, eObjects. So suppose if we have any field like mandatory, which we have mentioned in the eObjects, like suppose if you want to make it as a patient, we can say race or caste, if you want to make it as a mandatory in the Indian profile scenario. So we always have to follow that similar structure across all the HIS systems, has to be capture or has to be generate a JSON or whatever the data format which has the mandatory fields. So so that time you are saying that we may have to go with the custom FHIR profiles, which has to make somewhere we have to map that this is a customized parameter or this customized value, so that the FHIR can understand, or we have to make anything from the server side.
If you can use an embedded FHIR server, then it's much better option. And if you have already designed eObject based on Priyanka's Excel sheet, in Excel sheet we provided all keys. If it's already there and you are following this Excel sheet, our Excel sheet for eObject, then the output JSON will be same. If you are using custom FHIR profile or you are using any JSON parser, as long as in your header content type you can provide FHIR plus JSON.
So adding to that, FHIR server has a validator component which consists of the XML schematron files, and this actually publish all the structure definition profiles of all the data elements which are part of the FHIR resources. So what Ved is trying to say is that when we are developing a custom profile, we are actually updating those structure definition profiles based on the India specific requirement. Now, once it is published by the NDHB in a FHIR repository, then all the HIS systems have to load these structure definitions into their FHIR server. So ultimately, then all FHIR server understand the requirements in terms of what is mandatory, what is optional, how many data elements are required in a resource, and what value sets are required. So those standard confirming part will be achieved through the national profiles. So this custom profile, what we are saying is actually the way of representing the structure definition files, which are customized to adopt the standards as per the NDHB.
Okay. That means you are saying like it may be like one for at least for the SCA members, it will be some central FHIR server, something kind of thing which has matches with this profile, customized profiles.
So that is not required to be a central FHIR server. It is just like the profile definitions need to be. So for that purpose, you may take the profile definition from our open source GitHub. You may load it in any of the FHIR server you are testing with. So then you will be able to validate the FHIR resources with this particular custom resource definition files. But going forward, when NDHM will come in place, they will publish all the structure definition files through their FHIR registry across the country. And then all the vendors have to use those profile definitions in their respective FHIR servers. And these FHIR servers will be definitely federated. This will not be a centralized FHIR server. So any vendor can use these FHIR servers loaded with the definitions published in the centralized metadata of FHIR registry, basically.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
Any other question?
So if there are no other questions, I would want to invite my SCA members who want to talk more about the Eobject and their experience with the FHIR implementation. Pragya, over to you. Are you there?
Thank you, Priyanka.